I think communication is the key. Always communicate in expectations with your siblings, because I wouldn't really say it's just related to family, but even partnerships in general in business. I think communication is of utmost importance of what the expectations are for each sibling and each business partner. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be my number one takeaway from being in business, having multiple business with different partners. Yeah.
Just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better.
Hey, it's Ari. Welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm with George LaCapra Jr., president of UniMetal Surface Finishing. George, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Ari. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man, me too. Well, listen, it's the Made in America podcast. So starting off with our same two questions, George. What do you make and why do you make it?
All right. Well, we actually don't make anything. We are a metal finishing company that services the manufacturers. And so we add value and enhance our customers' product. We make them live longer, safer, cleaner, healthier, and more functional. And
so you make other people's products better?
Yeah, and our purpose is we want to understand what our customers' needs are so we can give them a superior product for end life use for the consumer.
George, I think that's really admirable. I know you guys do a bunch of great work. I don't know that everyone in the audience, listen, a lot of people in manufacturing probably know about what finishing is, but some of the people in the audience that maybe aren't as intimately familiar, maybe don't understand like what products get finished. Where would I see that? Is this just painting? Like, what is it? And you talked about making the products last longer, be more functional, be more environmentally conscious. Maybe help us understand like, what industries are you in? Give us some examples of where we.
Yeah, so our customers are metal manufacturers, could be job shop contractors, or really OEMs. And so it's all metal-based products that they would send to us, and that we would put a finish on them. It could be electroplating finishes as commercial metals as zinc, nickel, or tin. Niche processes like tri-metal, which is 3 different metals, and all these metals have different functionalities for the end use. They could make them last longer, they can make them function better, they could be wear resistance. But it's really interesting when I got into this business that all the products I used to see come through our factory floor in every industry, automotive industry, battery industry, the screwdriver blade industry, the fastener industry, housing industry, and we do dabble into the aerospace and the defense and the military and even the marine biology kind of industry. So medical is really an up and coming industry for us. But again,
it's like you mentioned automotive. So what part of a car would you guys be finishing? So
most of our stuff is small components that could fit in the palm of your hand.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be doing bumpers and mm-hmm. when they did the metal bumpers and that kind of stuff, or frames or body frames, but a lot of nuts, bolts, screws, fuel injector type, carburetor type parts, those type of parts, and typically those are corrosion finishes that we're adding to make them last longer in a car.
So the idea being, I got a screw that goes in my car. This thing is going to get rained on, snow, road, salt, lots of heat. I'm going to be hot. I'm going to be cold, wet, dry, all different times. The coatings to help make it so that your car lasts longer.
Correct. And then we have specifications from the big 3, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, that they would send to us through our customers and say, okay, this is the finish we need on the product. And we would certify that specification and put the finish on and send it back to our customer, yeah.
You said the housing industry, so that's kind of a little bit of a surprise. Yeah. Like, what are you guys doing in housing?
So we have a large customer that's in Massachusetts that makes a lot of deck screws for big box retailers. Okay. And so we put a finish on the screw that makes it last longer. So
sort of same concept, right? My deck's outside. Yeah. I need my screws to be able to be rained on, heated up, and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So, yeah, nice. Sounds like really spans lots of different industries. When you guys think about UniMetal and what you compete on, what you're dealing with your customers on, what kind of makes you guys unique, or why do people come to UniMetal?
Yeah, I think They come to us for one-stop shopping, and I'll get to that in a minute. But when my grandfather started the business, we built our reputation on quality, service, and delivery, and we stand by that. But customers come to us because in metal finishing, there's really 4 components of metal finishing. So you have cleaning, which is parts cleaning, just removing oil off of parts. You also have deburring, where you're maybe removing sharp edges off eyelets, any kind of shells that may have some rough edges, or you have electroplating where you're adding a coating on it to make it last longer and functional. The 4th component is heat treating, which changes the molecular structure of a metal to make it harder or softer. So we do all 3 of the cleaning, burning, and metal finishing under one roof. We're actually the largest in the Northeast to do that. And then we also have turnkey partners where we handle heat treating. So come to us and say, okay, this part needs to be cleaned, deburred, heat treated, and plated. It gives us an advantage over some of our competitors who just clean, who just deburr, who are just electroplate, or maybe just heat treating.
Come to UniMetal, get it all done, right? That makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned your grandfather started the business. So give me a story, George.
Yeah, so my grandfather started the business in, I say 1949 is the official date, but he actually started with a small nickel plating tank in his garage. And that was actually the first thing that he ever did. And then
Probably can't put a nickel plating tank in your garage in 2022,
today, right?
I wouldn't think. Yeah.
So he had, like, at that time, 7 or 8 buddies, and they all decided to start this business. And then what had happened in the flood of 55 came through, Thomaston and Waterbury and right down the valley. And so the big 3, the Anaconda and the American and Century Brasses of Waterbury, had come to my grandfather and said, we have all these munition shells that are all mud, and can you clean them? And so the business kind of morphed out of that. He got a 20,000 square foot facility in Waterbury, and one of the partners stayed, and the other ones got scared and said, no, we don't want to do this. So he ended up with one partner at that time, eventually buying him out, and it went from 20,000 square feet. And then we bought the Seth Thomas Clock Factory in 1983, and took on 40,000 square feet. And now we're in about 2 facilities and 180-something thousand square feet with 140 employees.
Well, from humble beginnings to something big. So, so why Thomaston? Is that just where your family was? Not a big town, like under 10,000 people, I think, in Thomaston.
It's a funny story. My father at the time was in running the business for my grandfather, and he said to his father, hey, we have to find another location. We're outgrowing this location of 20,000 square feet, and we couldn't expand where we were. And so my grandfather said, look, you're on your own. I really don't want anything to do with having a new location. So my father basically looked around the area, and he actually found this building in Thomaston that was vacated by Tally Industries, which had owned Seth Thomas at the time. And it had been empty for over a year. And so they had moved to Georgia, and the town was looking to get it filled. So they had brokered a tremendous deal for my father. And then my grandfather was like, I don't want anything to do with it. And so my father took on the risk, had no money, and went to one of these banks and begged them for a loan, and they gave him a loan. And so that's what spawned the growth in the business once we bought that new facility.
That Thomas Clock building is a lot bigger than 20 or 40,000 square feet, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the only way we made it, what he made it work at the time was we had 2 tenants in the building, large tenants that helped pay the mortgage, and so we convinced the bank that we could make the mortgage meet with these 2 tenants. So we had some long-term leases with them, but since they've departed, but we have grown so much that we've taken over a third of the building. But yeah, that building is 300,000 square feet. And so we have a commercial real estate arm that runs the building with a property manager, and so we have 14 or 15 other tenants in the building. UniMetal is the main tenant in the building, and we take up the whole ground floor. But it's a four-story building, and it's the old Seth Thomas Clock Factory. Seth Thomas came to Thomaston from Plymouth. It used to be part of Plymouth Hollow. So when he came, they renamed the town Thomaston, and he made 3 or 4 buildings in there. This was one of the last buildings that he had built, and it's still standing today. And we've been lucky to own it for almost 40 years now.
Okay, look at that.
Yeah.
So you just moved to town and they named the whole town after you, apparently?
Not me, but
Wow, times have changed. So you mentioned that your grandfather started it. Sounds like when it was time to kind of make the next big plunge, your grandfather said, "All right, I'm tapped out." Your dad picked it up. So that was like the early '80s. How long have you been involved?
So I came in the business in '94. We always had. My father was very, very good at putting a succession plan together for me and my three siblings if they wanted to come in the business. And so after college, we had to work 2 years for another employer just so we can felt what it was like to report to somebody else, and he didn't want to be, that guy that
Let somebody else break you in.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I went to school in Worcester College. I went to Assumption College, and then we moved to Boston with a bunch of my roommates, and we worked downtown in the financial district for a couple of years. And my father said, "Hey, to me and my brother, I think it's time. Do you guys want to come into the business?" And so I moved back home, and I've been there ever since.
What'd your brother say?
My brother said the same thing at the same time. Yeah, let's go.
So is your brother in the business with you now?
He since has exited the business in 2001.
Okay.
So I'm there, and then I have a younger sister that's in the business too. She's in the quality department.
Oh, no kidding.
So two of the four are in the business. Yeah.
There you go. So you moved back in the early '90s working for Pops. What was that like?
So my father was. He's old school, and he was like, "You're going to earn your way. Nothing's going to be given to you." So I developed a strong work ethic from an early age, and he had me working the floor, and maybe in the summers I was painting the building in high school. So I started really working there when I was 14. I used to drive around with the truck drivers and go to some of my customer stops. They'd buy me McDonald's at lunchtime and I'd eat it, and they'd go make the deliveries. And then in the summers in high school, he'd had me working there painting, doing all these odd jobs around the building, And then when I first came back, he had me, working from the ground up. I worked on the floor. I ran the wet rolling department, so all the tumbling, and I did that for 7 years. And then he had a plan. We went to purchasing. Then I went to estimating, and then I was vice president, and I became president in 2007.
So it's like a really nice 13-year progression.
Yeah.
Sounds like he'd really thought it through.
Yeah, he's just. He was very adamant that just because your name was LaCapra doesn't mean things were going to be given to you, and you have to show your people that you're willing to do any job that they're willing to do. And so that was the mindset that we were ingrained in our minds growing up. That a good work ethic, you create your own opportunities in business, whether it's a family business or any other business. So he never treated us differently than any other employee, which I'm grateful for because it taught me a lot.
Yeah, certainly things we earn probably feel a lot more ours than the things that are given to us.
It also gets me a lot of respect in the business.
Yeah, sure.
Because I've done most of the jobs in the business, and so I can really relate to some of the employees that if they have some issues that we can kind of work through.
You think it helps you make faster and better decisions having done so much of what's in the business? So when you have to think about strategically building this or doing that, you think it gives you a bit of an advantage having had your fingers in there so you're not kind of managing by spreadsheet, but you can manage a little bit by feel?
It doesn't help me make faster decisions, but I think more educated decisions. I don't make fast decisions. It's just my personality. I'm a thinker, and I like to think things through. But it gets me more education to really delve into an issue and how to solve it. I think because I know the floor and how it operates, and it helps me that way.
You were up in Boston with your buddies working in the financial district, and then bang, you're back in Thomaston, slightly fewer people than Boston.
Yeah.
And we're not working in financial, we're back in plating. Just curious, when you first came back, were you like, woo, what did I do? Were you excited about the different challenge? How do you think about sort of making that career change?
Yeah, it was a transition. It's I lived in a house right outside of Boston College, and we had 8 of us. So it was like, okay, we're going to work during the day, and we're gonna have some good times on the weekends. I had 2 jobs actually back then. I worked I worked for a subsidiary of American Express doing mutual funds, but I also valet parked at one of the hotels downtown. So I had a couple of jobs. I didn't have a lot of free time, and I was just trying to save money, and money was hard to come by then. You know, those kind of jobs coming out of college. I think I made $17,000 as my entry-level job. So I probably spent as much as I made back then. So I figured at 23 or 24, it probably was the time to say, if I'm ever going to go into the business, and my father saying, now's the time, I need you, that was probably the right opportunity, although the transition was tough because I missed a lot of my college roommates, but I still stay in touch with them. So it was a little bit of a transition. I actually moved home. My brother and I moved in together, and that was easier transition, and we kind of just went about the business, you know.
How do you think about it now when you think about, hey, man, I could have had a career in finance, you in mutual funds, who knows, you could have got into stocks and all that, you know, who knows, working at Fidelity and whatever up in Boston. Yeah. And you kind of went this path. And I wonder, for people that are out there listening that, you know, have those choices right now in front of them, if you're in their position, how would you think about it? And how do you think about it now that you're on the other, you know, further down the line?
Yeah, I'm a guy that sees the glass half full, and so I'm very positive, and I always look at it as every road you take, there's an opportunity to take advantage of. So I never look back and say, okay, is there any regrets, or should I have done this, should I have done that? I'm a guy that believes in faith, and I'm on this road because I'm supposed to be here, you know, and that's the way I look at it, and I go at it 100%, and I really don't look back.
What kind of pride do you get in owning your own business? Not just carrying on the family name, I'll ask you about that next, but just your own self personally, running a business, seeing what you get to do, touching the customers and impacting the employees. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's always, I look at it like, you know, there's an obligation for us to my employees that, you know, these guys or girls rely on us for their everyday life. So the enormity of it, when you think about it, there's a lot of pressure, right? And my biggest fear, I live in fear all the time that I don't want to screw this thing up, and this thing, you know, is I'm going to be the generation that makes it not work any longer, you know. And so there's a lot of pressure on that, but I take great pride in that. We continue to build the business and grow and keep the foundational principles that made us successful there every day. And so it's changing. It's an evolving business, always, this environment, but the principles are there.
I wonder if I can pull on that a little bit more. You know, it's funny because I think that there's always that juxtaposition now, whether you're trying to carry on a third generation family business or even just grow your existing business, whether you own it or not. You got to take some risks, right? And we go back to the conversation even your dad and your grandfather had, which was your grandfather he was probably later on in his career. He doesn't want to now double down, buy a building and all that pressure. But your dad realized, I want to keep this thing going. I can't play it safe and stay in this 20,000 square feet because we're not going to be able to make it to a third generation if we don't do it. So he's got to take that risk. And I'm sure you've faced some of those same types of decisions, expanding, you know, not taking on a tenant, taking on, you know, some more risk. Like, how do you think about making sure you're taking enough risk to keep the business moving forward, but still protecting the legacy?
Yeah, I think my father was around my age, you know, when he made that decision, and, you know, and I'm at the business is at a crossroads now. It's like, okay, do my kids are in college? Are they going to want to come into the business? And, you know, do I divest the business or do I keep it going? Or, you know, are they going to want to come in? They haven't told me yet. I really haven't asked the question. I want to get them through college, but, you know, so it is a challenge to think about the future. But there's so much potential in this business because of there's the barriers to entry in metal finishing are so great that there's no new players coming into the market, and so you know, it's like the last man standing kind of syndrome. You know, if you can outlive everybody here, I think it's you're going to be in good shape. And we've seen increased market share by just getting through all these you know, recessions, through the pandemic, and remaining financially stable in this environment is really, you know, it gives the customers a sense of confidence, right? we have a lot of large OEMs that look at us as we have a big infrastructure in place that can support their business. And I think when these companies went through the pandemic and they saw some of their suppliers go by the wayside, they realized they were dealing with maybe some suppliers that weren't so stable, and that it really jeopardized their business. And so we're seeing a lot of reshoring. We're seeing a lot of multiple facilities move back to the States, and I think we're going to see some more growth from that in the next couple of years.
What do you think's driving that reshoring?
I do think that our biggest competitor being China, I think that they've had their share of problems. And I think that, I hear from our customers is that, what once took 30 days on the water is now taking, 6 months to get product. And so, even in the automotive industry, you'll see these you hear about these chip shortages, right? Those are all made by two people, Intel, and I think, I can't remember the other one, but those are all made in China and Taiwan. You're starting to see some of these people now open up facilities in Texas to bring it back to the States, because they can't afford to. You see some of these lots, these car lots, right? They're empty. Mm-hmm. And you try to order a car now, it takes 6 or 8 months, right? And so, although the automotive will tell you that they don't like it, they do like it, right? Their mentality before the pandemic was they used to force the cars on the manufacturer, all these dealers. Now they like it because they're getting $10,000 over invoice for a car, and they don't have to worry about warranty items sitting in the parking lot. The car's just storing, right?
Right.
So there's it's funny how those things create different opportunities and open people's eyes and companies' eyes to different things that happen.
Do you think that once the the zero COVID policy in China is not really helping the supply chain at all, right? If you can't leave your apartment, and that's a problem. Do you think that this trend survives, over the time where that reopens up?
I think big companies are smartening up. Before they were just looking at the dollars, and I think now they're looking at there's so much more that goes into than just the price. Mm-hmm. And I think they're realizing availability has a number that you can't even measure, right? Mm-hmm. And so availability of product, they quickly realize that when you don't have available product, you can't make any sales, right? And so I think availability to them has become the number one factor besides price. So I think it will stand the test of time. I really do.
Oh, that's cool. So, I know that you guys did, I think, an acquisition in Connecticut. When did you guys do that?
We did that in 2010.
Okay.
Yeah. June 10th, 2000.
So that was under the George LaCapra Jr. administration, as it were.
Yeah, so that was June 10th, 2011. So it's been 11 years coming up. So Patrick Hayden is now my business partner, and so Patrick had a business that was just electroplating. Okay. So the 3 segments, he was that. And so we decided, we had always been friends in the business, and we shared business, and we decided after the recession that it made sense. Our electroplating business used to be called Quality Rolling and Brewing. That's my grandfather started the business. Patrick's was Craft, and then we rebranded the company on Unified Metal Finishers, UniMetal. That's how you get the name. So we only overlapped. I had 25% of my business was only electroplating, and so bringing him on as a partner really grew our portfolio for our customers. And so it's been a great marriage. It's coming on 11 years,
11 years, and it's been solid. So you look back, because a lot of acquisitions don't work out, especially the first ones people do, don't always kind of map out. But it sounds like this one was a winner for you guys. Yeah,
Pat's a great partner, very knowledgeable, can-do type of guy, right? And great attitude for the business, and he loves metal finishing. So
does he run that facility in Naugatuck?
He's housed out of that facility, and he's senior vice president, chief technical officer. He deals a lot with the customers, technically, because he's also sold chemicals in his previous life. So he has both sides of it, right? So he handles a lot of the customers and projects and that kind of stuff. He's housed there, so he definitely helps out managing the facility. But we have a plant manager down there that helps out as well. So
how do you guys kind of manage? So it sounds like the electroplating that you guys do in Naugatuck is complementary to the stuff you're doing in Thomaston.
Yeah.
How do you guys kind of manage the work sharing between those two facilities? Because it's not like they're in the same building, obviously.
Yeah. So one thing we did synergistically was we try to eliminate duplicate operations in both facilities. So we try not to do multiple operations in each facility. So we run a truck twice a day down each facility, just moving work back and forth. So
all the electroplating maybe moved from Thomaston to Naugatuck, and any of the stuff, the rolling, deburring stuff that you're doing in Naugatuck, that's all getting done in Thomaston. Meaning, so you're not kind of running duplicate processes. So if this thing happens here, it likely doesn't really happen there. Is that what you're saying?
We do electroplating in Thomaston as well, but mostly commercial finishes like the nickel, tin, zinc, and then the specialty niche platings are in Naugatuck.
Okay.
So really our philosophy, even from my grandfather, was like with our customers is we treat it as a partnership. Mm-hmm. So we get programs presented to us that come to us. And so, everything was done on a handshake with us. It's like, hey, Ari, you have this program. I'm going to put this line in for you. You give me the business. I'll give you a good price. If the quality is good, just don't take it away from me, right? And so we would put the equipment in, and it gives us, the customer, a sense of stability and security that we're always going to be there for them. So if we do have duplicate operations of plating in Naugatuck, it's customer specific.
Got it.
All right. So we might have one line for a certain customer down there, and then we also have a line up in Thomaston, but it's for all our customers.
Why not just have that one customer operation up in the other location?
Well, I guess environmentally, there's some constraints, compliance and permit-wise, water usage, and also some space. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, you mentioned something earlier that there's large barriers of entry to metal finishing. I presume a lot of that's environmental.
Correct.
Is metal finishing have a long-term life? I don't know what the technology is, but it seems like, because you had said there's lots of barriers to entry, but based on what you guys use, as long as we're using metal to make things, seems like we're going to need finishing.
Oh yeah. I don't think metal finishing is a dying industry. It's a $5 billion industry. Mm-hmm. But I think that you're seeing even automotive manufacturers move to more plastics. Mm-hmm. Your car is probably not as solidly made as it once was.
Yeah, you mentioned,
right?
I was thinking about that when you said metal bumpers, like when they used to make metal bumpers. Yeah, and
everything's
you're right.
Fiberglass and plastic now. And so there's always a need for it. So I don't think it's going away. But the beer, like environmentally, it's tough to get into this business. Especially in Connecticut, the environmental laws are very antiquated, and so the processes could be tedious to get permitting. Although the state, I'll give them a lot of credit that they're trying to streamline a lot of that permitting process. But I don't think investors wake up in the morning and say, I want to get into metal finishing, right? Because there's a lot of risk when you're talking about environmental compliance and that kind of stuff. So it's not something that, people aren't beating down the door.
Yeah, fair enough.
There's a lot of family business out there that probably been handed over for generation to generation, and that, people are keeping them going because it's they're making a living and they're able to live comfortable, So I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah. What was it, just really quickly, and then I want to talk about what's on the table for people that are watching, are probably wondering this whole time, what is happening here? So, but we'll get to that just really quickly, because I just think there's so many family businesses, especially family manufacturers in Connecticut. So I just want to ask, you worked with your brother for a little while, you're still working with your sister. Any thoughts, tips, tricks, ideas about how to make those types of relationships stay strong while you're working together?
I think communication is the key. Always communicate in expectations with your siblings, because I wouldn't really say it's just related to family, but even partnerships in general in business. I think communication is of utmost importance of what the expectations are for each sibling and each business partner. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be my number one takeaway from from being in business, having multiple business with different partners. Yeah.
How do you facilitate to make sure that, because I agree with you 100%, you don't have to be family, but
Yeah.
it's, clear communication on expectations, clear communication when you agree, and more importantly, when you don't agree, so you can get on the same page.
Yeah.
How do you what do you do to kind of keep that happening?
Well, I think it's me having regular meetings with your business partners and your siblings, and make sure we're all communication. I mean, that's the important part. At each business we have, whether it's weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings. Now, I'm not just sitting down with my sister and having a one-on-one unless I need to, but she's involved in the management meetings, and we share what the expectations are in those meetings.
What do you do in terms of like the difference between, ownership and equity and then roles in the business, right? Because I mean, I imagine that those are a little bit different, no?
Yeah. I don't treat, for the metal finishing side, I don't treat it any differently just because I have equity in the business. I still have a role in the business. I'm president and run the day-to-day operation. So I don't segregate the two, I really don't. And I think that's important that they see that, even though I'm an owner, I'm there every day, and I'm engaged in the business.
Yeah,
and I think that's
working hard just like everybody else.
That inspires your help, your managers, your key people that, he's engaged and this thing's moving in the right direction.
Got to lead by example. So that probably leads me to these 6 shiny things that are sitting on the table here, which, although they're made of some type of a metal, aluminum, I don't think that they're finished at UniMetal, as a matter of fact. So for people that are listening, I'm a listener, not a watcher. So I respect that. There's 6 beer cans on the table here. Clocktown Brewing Company. Time best spent. Yep. George, what's up? Why do we have beer? I mean, I'll drink a beer as much as the next guy, but why do we got beer on the table?
Yeah. In my infinite wisdom, I had some open space in the building, and I thought it would be cool as a hobby to maybe start a brewery. I'd say 4 years ago, I had the idea, and here we are, 5 years later, and this has become a full-time proposition for my wife, especially. She does a great job managing the brewery and the glue that keeps it all together, and she's fantastic. So, it was a funny story. My partner in Clocktown Brewing, the name is named after, obviously, Thomaston is a clock town. It's Thomas. We decided, my partner and I decided, he was the brewer. He was a home brewer for 13 years. And, we had been at a 40th birthday party at another brewery. And I was like, this was late 2017. I was like, I have the space. Why don't we do this? We could be a hobby for us, and he had a full-time job. And obviously I had a full-time job. He's like, okay. I said, I got the space. I said, shouldn't cost us too much, We had some resources we could dig into, and so we started the process. And Thomaston, at the time, the building we were in, didn't allow alcohol beverages to be served within 750 feet of a park, and right outside our building is St. Thomas Park. So I applied for a zoning permit. To have a variance. I was 550 feet.
Right.
And I went to the meeting. They're like, "What's your hardship?" Well, this is my hardship. They denied it.
They denied it?
Yeah. So I was like, okay, then we're done.
You got a big enough building. Just move it 200 feet farther back. Yeah.
The entrance to the building to the park was 550 feet.
Oh, it's the entrance to the building, not where.
No, the entrance to the brewery was 550 feet away, and that was the farthest point of the building.
Oh, okay.
Right?
All right, I got you.
So I was like, okay, by the time this was like spring of 18. And so what had happened is, the reporter in town for the local paper, after the meeting minutes became public, he must go on the website and look, and so he called me. He said, "What's this thing you wanted to do? You got denied." So I told him the story, and the Republican American wrote this big article about me getting denied.
Really?
They want to put a brewery in town and all this. So the residents were pretty upset about it. So we had these 2 particular residents that were like started this petition. They wanted to overturn the decision. And so I had 1,300 people sign a petition, and they went to the town, and the town said, file an application to change the zoning laws. And so they did.
Stop it.
They did, and they got it approved, and they made they changed the zoning law to allow in our zone brew pubs and a brewery. So that happened late 18, and so we're on our way now. It's like, oh my God, this is going to become a reality, right? So
20% of the town signed a petition to get you guys. That's hilarious.
So we went. It took another year to get all the permitting for it, even like the federal permit and the state permit. And then late 2019, we started construction. We gutted a 10,000 square foot area, and we built it back up. And then, unfortunately,
just in time for COVID.
COVID hit in March of 2020, and I was like, okay, I got all this money invested. What am I doing? And we were going to open in the following summer, the July.
Right.
It's like, I can't do this. And so we put it off until October of 2020. And ever since, it's been amazing. The town has really embraced it. It's got an amazing response. And people come from all over. And I think the unique thing about if you've ever been to a brewery, most breweries are very small and, have food trucks outside. What I wanted to build was a space that people could come and have an experience. And so we've made it 10,000 square feet. Our tap room is 6,600 square feet. We have a 10-barrel brewing system that sits right back of the bar. I have a 40-foot bar with 20 seats. I have a patio that's another 2,000 square feet. We have live entertainment on the weekend, and then trivia on Wednesday nights, cornhole on Thursday nights. I brought a pizza oven in from Italy. We have that for pizza, and we have a full kitchen. And we've made this amazing experience for everyone that's been well received by everyone. And not only is my business partner the brewer, we have also added a head brewer that came from Two Roads. And so we've been fortunate enough to win Connecticut Brewery of the Year 2 years in a row. And we've also run these beers on the table, our award-winning beers from the New York International Beer Competition the last 2 years. And so we've been fortunate enough to make good beer, provide good food, entertainment, and a great experience for our customers. And so it's been a lot more than I ever expected it would be. And, now it's the challenge is juggling the time. Thank God for my wonderful wife who.
I was going to say, George, this hobby has taken on a life of its
full-time
own.
proposition. So we now have 65 people on the payroll, 8 full-time employees, and we're continuing to grow. We're just adding a private party room, another 2,000 square feet. So
is that right?
Yeah.
We have definitely left hobby zone. What's your particular favorite? So I'm just for the people that are listening, watching. We've got a triple decker Belgian style ale. We've got Harvest Time Amber Ale.
Got a ton.
Time Flies Double Bacher Lager, and I think this was just the Thomaston Lager, German style Pilsner.
Yeah.
Which is so I saw that you brought 2 of the Harvest Time. So does that mean Harvest Time is it's Harvest Time? Is that what we're saying?
Well, the Harvest and the Thomaston are the lowest percentages that we make, so they're around 5.5%. My favorite beer is a Thomaston Lager. There's a story behind it. We had asked that town for permission if we could put their name on the beer. Of course, they were very excited about it. But this one, if you don't know Thomaston, it's a small town, blue collar. I mean, blue collar. These people drink Bud and Bud Light. And so we don't sell anything else at our brewery but our own beer. And we also have a full bar, so that's also good. So Thomaston Lager is a beer that is made for Thomaston. And so it's very light. It's like your Bud or Bud Light, and it's our largest seller. And so I really like that one because it's not
connects to the town.
Yeah, exactly.
Tastes good. I'm wearing a little bit of it too, but that happens.
So it's so we've been really lucky. The thing is we have our manufacturer's permit to make beer. We also have our self-distribution permit. So we self-distribute. We're in about 70 to 75 package stores and restaurants around the state, and we have a full-time sales staff that is working hard about expanding that footprint And then we also do. We just started at the beginning of the year doing brunch on Sundays now. So we have a brunch that's been popular, and it's typically sold out. Yeah.
That's amazing. How much has your experience from UniMetal, all the stuff you've done there over your career, helped to kind of make this so successful so quickly?
Yeah, I think leadership was a key thing. And then my wife leans on me a lot for expertise in certain areas that I'm really good at, and financially, and I handle all the back end kind of stuff, the finances, and the payroll and that kind of stuff, and she handles a lot of all the front end with the servers, the hostess, the bar, and in the kitchen, and all the scheduling, all the event planning. I mean, social media. I mean, you name it, she does it, and it's a ton of fun. And it reconnected a lot with us to our friends. Like, with our kids growing up the last 10 years, weekends were spent at the fields, right?
Yeah.
Soccer, baseball, whatever it was. We lost touch with a lot of our good friends, and this has reconnected some friendships. By now we could hang out at the brewery and see a lot of our people could come visit and have a great experience. So
that's
been
cool.
Wonderful.
That's funny, man. I know the show's not about me, but you just said something that just connected. My daughter, I have 2 young kids. My daughter just started soccer.
Oh, wow.
So last Saturday was my first Saturday at like a kid's sporting event. I just looked to my wife and I was like, well, it's going to be this for about the next 15 years. So
you're going through it. You love it.
Absolutely.
And then you look back at it and you said, how did I do that? Spending every weekend at the soccer field, double headers of my son on Saturday and Sunday. I felt like the weekends flew by, and it's wonderful to see them grow and go through that.
It'll be a lot easier once I'm watching kids older than 7 play soccer, because it's tough right now. It's tough. George, this has been awesome, man. Some really cool stuff. I want to go to a rapid fire round of questions. We'll wrap this up, but I just did want to just quick editorialize, say, it's really cool, man. I mean, it's fun to hear about all this stuff, and I think it's great to work for a family business where the owner's passionate, where you do something that really matters and the business is growing, and then to have the owner open up a brewery in the building. So after work, I got somewhere to go. It's pretty unique.
Have a hard day, and I head right over.
Head right over, yeah, no doubt. All right, cool. Listen, rapid fire round of questions, George.
Sure.
You ready? Red Sox or Yankees?
Yankees all the way.
Man, I liked you a lot up until now. Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Dunkin'.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Exotic all the way.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
Sports car.
Got a favorite business book?
I do. Reading one right now. It's called The Road Less Stupid by Michael Cunningham.
The Road Less Stupid by Michael Cunningham. I'm going to put that on my list. If you could do anything in the whole wide world, George, no limitations, it had to be something other than president of UniMetal or the brewery or anything else you're currently doing, what would you do?
I'm a sports buff. I'd would have been a professional sports player.
Any particular sport?
Well, I played baseball in college, so that would probably be my number one, yeah.
All right. Well, listen, if we both had our druthers, we'd be facing each other in the American League Championship Series, Red Sox, Yankees. What's one thing that you learned early in your career, George, or early in your life that you think helped propel you to all the success you've had?
Yeah, I would say 3 things that really are foundational for me. One of them is faith, I think it's important that believe, faith, hope, and love are the 3 things that I live by, I think if you have faith and you believe that you can do something, you can get it done. And then, it's seeing the glass half full, and it's, spreading love rather than hate. I think that's important in life. And so that's what I live by. And I also believe honesty is the first chapter in the book of wisdom, right? I mean, I was taught that at a young age. And then also I was taught by my parents the work ethic you create your own opportunities by your work ethic. So I learned those early on, and it's been my foundation since.
It's a solid foundation. What's something, George, that you learned later in life or later in your career that looking back, if you could go back and tell young George and he'd listen to you think it'd have a real positive impact on him?
Yeah. Learn to say no.
Ooh.
It's just I love to see people happy, and I love to make people happy, and sometimes at the detriment of always saying yes. So I've learned to say no, but I also talked about the communication piece. That if I learned that, a long time ago communication, things would have gone a little bit smoother. So
those might go hand in hand,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Better communication to say no. George, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. It's been a really interesting conversation. I have like 6 things I didn't even get to, so we'll have to have you come back, cover some other ground, and get some more great beer.
great having me on. I had a blast.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by CompassMSP.
Thanks for listening and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a strong manufacturing community, and it would be impossible to do without all of you.